In the village of Uruko, Pajimo was a man of heavy secrets. Behind his house stood a massive ancient neem tree known as the Dogoyaro. Its bark was scarred and black, and its leaves never fell, even in the harshest harmattan. The rule was absolute. Whenever a child was born, the placenta was buried deep under that tree. Pajimo knew the price. This tradition, handed down by his forefathers, was called the binding of the soil. It ensured the children stayed alive, but it also anchored their glory to the death. They were like kites tied to a rock. They could fly, but they could never go anywhere. Pajimo kept silent because he feared the 7-day curse. He believed anyone who broke the tradition would see their child wither and die within a week. Years passed, and the children, Femi, Kule, and Busayo, grew up. They were brilliant and hardworking, but a dark cloud followed them to the city. Femi was the shadow of a man. He had 3 degrees, but ended up carrying heavy bags at the motor park just to eat. Every time he got a job interview, something bizarre happened. His clothes would suddenly tear on the bus, or he would completely forget his own name at the entrance of the office. He lived in a state of constant shame, unable to explain why his brilliance was met with such bitter bad luck. Busayo, the daughter, was the most haunted. She was beautiful and smart, but she could not find a job, and no man would stay. Every man who intended to marry her would suddenly go cold, experience a terrible accident, or simply vanish. She spent her nights in a tiny rented room, her pillow soaked with tears of frustration, watching her youth slip away while she remained jobless and alone. The torment of being seen but not choosing ate at her soul daily. The nightmares were the worst part. Every time they closed their eyes, they felt the sensation of death in their mouths. They would see a giant hand reaching into their eggs, pulling out a golden thread and winding it around a thick, suffocating root. They woke up exhausted, smelling of damp earth and old wood, even in the middle of a concrete city. Their bodies were in the city, but their essence was being fed to the roots in Uruko. Femi, a devoted Muslim, spent his nights at the mosque, crying out to Allah. His friend Musa watched him waste away. One night, after Femi collapsed during prayers, Musa took him to see a Malam, a man of deep sight. The Malam didn't ask Femi for his name. He looked at Femi's feet and recoiled. "Young man," the Malam whispered, "your feet are in this room, but your soul is buried in a compound far from here. There is a tree, a thirsty tree. It is drinking your life like water." Meanwhile, Busayo had wandered into a prophetic church service out of pure desperation. The atmosphere was thick with heat. The pastor pointed a finger like a sword and shouted, "There is a woman here. Your womb is tied to the earth. Your father has a covenant with a tree. Until that tree releases your placenta, you will remain a slave to the wind." The siblings met and realized they were fighting the same demon. They rushed back to the village, their faces thin and their eyes sucking from years of suffering. They found Pajimo sitting under the tree, looking like it was made of stone. "Papa, why?" Femi screamed, his voice cracking with years of pain. "We are beggars in the city, while you sit here, guarding our graves." "I wanted you to leave," Pajimo cried, his voice trembling. "If I didn't bury them, the spirit would have taken you in 7 days." "We are already dead, Papa," Busayo shrieked, showing him a tattered clothes and aged face. "Look at us. We are walking corpses." The air grew heavy. The branches of the neem tree began to hiss like snakes, though there were no breeze. The siblings didn't wait. Femi began to shout Arabic prayers, his voice thundering with a power that he hadn't felt in years. Busayo fell on her knees, screaming for the God of Elijah to answer her by fire. The tension was unbearable. The ground began to heave and crack. Pajimo fell to the earth, weeping. As he finally pointed to the exact spot between the two gnarled roots, Kunle grabbed the hoe and dug until his hands bled. He pulled out 3 small clay pots, sealed with black wax and wrapped in thread that looked like gold turning to ash. Femi smashed the first pot. Kunle smashed the second. Finally, Busayo took the third pot, her own, and shattered it against the trunk of the tree with all the strength of her stolen years. A foul, rotten smell filled the air. The smell of decades, old secrets being exposed. The siblings felt a sharp pulling sensation in their chests, as if the golden threads from their dreams were being snapped back into their bodies. The tree's leaves suddenly turned yellow and began to drop like rain, covering the ground in grey dust. By morning, the great neem was a dry, brittle skeleton. The 7-day course never came. Instead, on the 8th day, the stagnation broke like a dam. Busayo's phone rang. It was a company offering her a managerial role she had applied for years ago. Then another call came. The man who had left her was begging to come back. The veil finally lifted from his eyes. Femi received news of a partnership that would change his life forever. The family had paid in years of suffering, but the covenant was broken. They left the village that day, leaving the dead tree behind. The soil no longer owned them. Their stars were finally back in their own hands. The moral of the story is that fear is a cage. When we cling to old fearful traditions in the name of protection, we often end up burying the very future we are trying to save.
Thank you for listening to this tale. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves folk tales. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments who your favorite character was and why. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Until the next tale, stay curious, stay inspired.